Hello and welcome. You're watching the Policy Times, world's first policy and business media. Policy Times has been consistently working on promoting development, progress, prosperity, so that the whole nation, instead of talking issues which are of not much relevance to the progress of the nation, we should focus, talk, and reorient our energy and ourselves towards achieving a better nation tomorrow. India is a very vast and diverse nation. There is no doubt in that fact. In every 5 kilometers, the language, culture, color, everything changes. Hence, managing a nation like India has always been a very Herculean task, and no political party, no single individual leader can solve the problems. Hence, the solution has also to be diverse and inclusive at the same time. At a time when we are having a very strong leadership, everything seems glossy and glittering. Mr. APS Kumar from South, I would say, Karnataka, who has been working in the space of development, but has written a wonderful book, which is in my hand now. It is called India, Whose Country Is It Anyway? Now, that's a very interesting question at this important climax and juncture. I want to welcome Mr. Kumar. Mr. Kumar, welcome. My first question, if you can just briefly introduce yourself and also answer my first question, that is, what motivated you to write with a title something like this, India, Whose Country Is It Anyway?
Yes, sir, to come to the subject. I have been reading, during my college days, one or two books I read about India, the March of Free India, for instance, one book. But then I found it was all not at all comprehensive. They're just a commentary, a small 50-page book. At that time, I was prompted to write a comprehensive book on all subjects. And I have been, of course, having the habit of reading. So I have been reading a number of magazines, books, listening to debates, talking to friends. So I developed some ideas. I said I should put it into writing. And after all, to know knowledge is strength. In India, I have found our people do not care to know things. Very few people have the habit of reading. And as a result, they have developed a kind of careless attitude towards the society, towards the country. Whatever we see today, Bharat Mata Ki Jai and all that, I feel is sheer jingoism. It's not real patriotism. For me, patriotism is love of the people, not love of a piece of land, real estate. That is Kashmir is a piece of real estate, Northeast is a piece of real estate. I don't look at it that way. For me, country means my people. If I don't love my people, I don't love the country. So I wanted to convey certain ideas of my own as well as whatever I have picked up from books and magazines. So that was the result of this book. And then when the question of titling it, I searched for certain ideas and then zeroed in on this, whose country it is. I have always felt I have been traveling quite much within the country, and I have felt that the feeling of oneness among Indians is very, very brittle, very less. This is not what we see in Europe or Japan or China, for that matter. So we are more interested in our caste, in our community, in our language and such things, not really attached to the country. So I got a feeling that we are not attached to the country, yes, and therefore I named it Whose Country? Particularly the middle class in India has disowned this country. That's what some observer of Indian scene says. The great Indian middle class has disowned this country. If the middle class has disowned the country, what else? Who else will think of the country? It's after all the middle class, which is the intellectual class, which is educated, well equipped to understand things. But then the middle class is lost in its own self development and things like that. That is where the country is today, in a very sorry state of affairs.
Thank you. Thank you. Wonderful. First, you mentioned about middle class. Then you talked about, and absolutely, we'll go deep into that. But I want to touch upon some major issues so that, this interview becomes inclusive and conclusive. But then we will do a series of interactions on each of the themes that you have tried to address in this book. First, you have divided the whole thing into a couple of chapters. I will not talk about all the chapters. I will pick a couple of areas where let us understand your views, and then let us also try to find solutions. India, that is Bharat. Now, since independence, India was always divided between India and Bharat. But couple of years back, we were talking about Bharat and how to address the issues of Bharat. Today, we see millions of youth traveling from Bharat, leaving agriculture to cities, and they are driving autos, they are driving cars, they are opening vendor shops, and also largely they are into drinking and some sort of unsocial activities. We are not able to skill them. We are not able to provide them organized or formal employment. Hence, we are in a complete, a very unstable situation, unsustainable and unstable situation. How do you think the current regime or the current India is addressing the issue of Bharat?
In 2014, when the BJP came to power, most of us thought that things would change drastically. So far as, say, corruption is concerned, our attachment to the country's cause is concerned, security issues, economic issues, and politics also, because in one of the chapters I have dealt with this political developments. I have called it the contaminated realm. Politics is really contaminated. I, as a person who knows certain things about the country, I don't agree any changes taking place. Very unfortunately, in this country, in 1947, when we got our independence, we thought there would be great transformation, which happened in many other countries, like, say, the Soviet Union, China, Japan, parts of Europe, the whole of Europe, and parts of Asia and South America. That did not happen because we carried on the British traditions, in the sense, whatever the British left, we have taken, lock, stock and barrel. The leaders like Jawaharlal Nehru and Vallabhbhai Patel, I want to make one thing clear here. Whatever decision was taken during the independence and soon after independence was the result of concurrence of ideas between Nehru and Patel. There is nothing as Patel did not agree with Nehru. They have discussed, they have agreed on certain things, even on very sensitive issues about which I'll talk sometime later in the context. But the leadership, for example, said there is no need to have any change in our bureaucracy. There is no need to have any change in our police force. See, these two things were developed for the benefit of the British, the colonial masters. They were trained to take care of their interests. And they could not have changed all of a sudden unless the government, the political leadership, had given a different orientation to the entire thing. That did not happen. So today, all the malaise that is there in our country, like, say, education system, the judicial system, the backwardness of the economy, the communal conflagration in the country, all these things have been left by the British. And we have not faced them head on. There have only been tentative attempts. No leadership, be it the Congress or later on many other small parties here and there have come to power. Now the BJP is there. None of the political class has ever thought of changing the whole system. Now I would like to give you the example of the US. US, after all, the same blood as the British, same stock. But they sought independence. When they got independence, the Americans destroyed everything that was British. Everything, including buildings, their legal system, their thinking, everything changed. So much so that the Americans did not even take to cricket. They had invented their own game. Even English, they changed the way they pronounce English, the way they spell English. To that extent, they were fired by a desire to have everything different. As a result, an individual who is chained should be released. His energies must be released. That is where the country progresses. That is what we see whenever there is following any revolution, be it in France or the USSR, China, or even USA. When the spirit of the individual is released, there is a lot of energy that comes out, and this energy alone builds up the nation. But in our country, we have not released the individual from serfdom, from slavery, from feudalism. The worst thing that India today suffers is feudalism. Then patriarchy is an offshoot of feudalism. China abolished feudalism officially, Russia abolished, France abolished, America abolished, all officially by law. But we have not abolished feudalism. So we cannot talk about democracy. There cannot be a democracy set up where there is feudalism. As Dr. Ambedkar said, this is only, top down. At the top, people like Nehru or Subhash Chandra Bose, they thought of democracy, they thought of secularism. That did not percolate down. As a result, there is lethargy, there is stationary. People are without motivation. Whatever one may talk, whatever today is happening in this country is confined only to about 20% of the people. The 80%, which is the real India, that is Bharat, which we are talking about often. Gandhiji also said, India lives in the villages. But what is that we have done to the village? You just go 10, 15 kilometers outside any of the big cities. You find that stationary life, people without hopes, poverty, there is a lot of feudalism where a man is not at all respected for what he is. So because of these things, no country can prosper. We talk about development, a lot of, you see, atomic energy, space, all these things are there. We have made significant progresses, but still it is not world class. We are just kind of reinventing the wheel, We are just following certain things. And to me, as an observer, as an individual, as a citizen of this country, if 60 to 80% of the people are in misery, when I say misery, I mainly mean poverty, ignorance, then lack of food, lack of shelter, lack of education. If this is not there for 60 to 70% of the people, then what is the progress we are talking about? For whom? So it is criminal for us to forget the majority, 60%. A great Tamil poet once said, even if one man goes hungry to the bed, let us destroy this world. Yeah, that should be our approach, our
That's
thinking, our thinking. Yes, sir.
that's a pretty bold statement. If one man goes hungry on bed, you should destroy the world. And in fact, that is also said in a lot of other religious context, which I don't want to go into. Now, you already
Yes.
talked about miseries. There are 4 or 5 areas you have touched upon. Since we are short of time, so I will try to. I will ask the same question to touch upon all these areas. You talked about
Yeah.
caste conundrum. Now, caste issue has already been solved. Today, the whole Hindu community is almost like united under the current, sentiment which is broadly being broadcasted. The second you talked about the enslaved women, women's are being glorified today. I mean, see the women's engagement in workspace, women's literacy rate, women's economic upliftment. So how do you think this is still an issue for the country? Muslims, you have mentioned Muslims as a separate chapter, which I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
you will talk about what it is. Then there are two
Yes.
things: corruption and education. So what was corruption still? I mean, though our system says that we have been less corrupt today and we have been more transparent, but what is your take? So over to you.
Yeah. Corruption is a very big issue, and it's a moral issue. Not only an economic issue, it's a moral issue. You go abroad, you find a lot of honesty on the street. Common people are quite honest. If there is corruption, it is only at the higher level, all running into millions of dollars. The common saying even in South Africa, for instance, is don't mess with a constable, don't try to bribe him, you'll land up in jail. But what do we see here? The dignity of Indian state has been compromised when a policeman on the street takes bribe, extracts money. This we are seeing every day. Very unfortunately, people at the top do not know this. You tell the commissioner of police about the constable, he'll say, no, there is nothing like that. My force is quite good, grand, and whatnot. And corruption, every Indian is corrupt in one way or the other. You go to any government office, even today, when the present Prime Minister spoke about abolishing corruption, I was enthused. Earlier, when Mr. Vajpayee was there, but some scandal came up, I thought that was a good opportunity for the government to go head on and attack corruption, but that has not happened. And here, Mr. Akram, I would like to tell one thing which may make people feel bad. Every one of us, I said, is corrupt. I firmly say that. I can repeat it any number of times because in our social system, in our individual life, there is corruption. Don't you think dowry is corruption? It is. Corruption starts in your house. And in the public life also, nowadays nobody thinks corruption is bad. It has become part of our life. And if you are not corrupt, if you don't know how to make money through these means, people say you're a fool, you don't know how to lead a good life. So corruption at every nook and corner, in every house, in every office, it is there, disgusting. You come out, you see it. The bus conductor takes money and doesn't give you a ticket. The constable stops you on the way. Just like that, in the public, he takes money. What does it all mean? There is no, they don't even think of making it discreet. No, it's open now. Nobody thinks corruption is bad. So I think that's briefly so. Briefly I have said. There should not be, I don't like to go into individual acts, it's like, judiciary is corrupt, the police force is corrupt, army is corrupt. Some lieutenant general has written about it. There is a lot of corruption in the army. There is corruption in our education system. There is corruption in our social system. There is corruption in our economic dealings. So corruption is the very be all and end of an Indian life. Yes, sir. To come to the women in our society, you see, we have a split personality. Indians, most Indians. On the one level, some of our gods are female, goddess of knowledge, goddess of wealth, goddess of power and whatnot. But when it comes to the individual level, at the family level, the woman is not treated as she must be. And after all, women form 50% of the population. And if they are kept in chains, and after all, you and I, we have grown in the lap of the mother. If the mother is ignorant, if she is unhealthy, what kind of a life she can give to the child? After all, the child's, an individual's growth begins in the womb of the mother. That's why doctors tell the mother, eat well, eat fruits. I am set to laughter, when I hear doctors say this. Eat a lot of fruits, lot of vegetables. To a lady who earns 200 rupees on a day. So women are not treated well in this country. The other day I heard one of my friends say, you don't know, Mr. Kumar, women should be kept under control, otherwise they'll sit on your head. I said, your mother is a woman. What do you say to your mother? You have sisters with you. Will you treat your sisters like that? When it comes to a wife, yes, you say we have to beat them. In villages, it's very common. They say the way to keep a woman under control, not subjection. They don't use the word subjection, though it is subjection. They say to keep a woman under control is to beat her. So this is the status of women, and all these women's associations and human rights bodies, it is all confined to maybe about 5 to 10% of Indian women. What is the life of the 90% of the women? Wife beating is very common. A man feels it is his right to beat a woman, his wife. Brothers, they control the sisters, that too through violence. And then we don't respect. We look at Afghanistan, we say, oh, what the Afghan government doing is wrong. They don't give education to women. They are very conservative, this and that. But then, what are we doing? It's only shades of difference. Except that our government, our political system, we say, is democracy and secular. I would like to talk about secularism also a bit later on. But we are not that. And one of the motivations for me to write the book was to tell the people what we are. Unless you know what you are, where is the possibility of reform? How can you correct yourself? You just can't, because Sare jahan se acha Hindustan hamara. This is what is going on. Even our soldiers are made to march to that tune. If we keep on boasting ourselves, now there is a boast, now India's prestige has gone up in the world. I doubt very much. India's prestige, actually during the non-alignment days, it was good, and that continues. Okay, there will be additions, and in international relations, if you are in good terms with the US, your country is accepted. The moment you go against the country, against US interests, for example, North Korea or Iran or Cuba, why these countries are called axis of evil and whatnot? Because they are not on the side of US. Today, if the Indian government takes one decision which is detrimental to the US interest or Western interest, India will be treated like a pariah. All this good name which we imagine to have earned, it will go for a six. Yes, sir.
Thank you. And about the other issues that you talked now, I think we are short of time. We'll go to the solution part. You say we the people. And also you mentioned about the white man's burden. So maybe
Yes.
to conclude, you're raising a lot of issues. What,
Yes.
according to you, though it's a very vast topic and it's very difficult to conclude a discussion like this. I mean, in 75 years, we have not been able to. So
Yes.
what would be in some bullet line solutions for such a complex nation like India?
Sir, in my book also I have not spoken about solutions.
Yeah.
Because yes, for such a vast country, as you have yourself mentioned, with so much diversity in language, custom, religion, and all that, it will be very difficult unless we have a strong leadership like, say, Mustafa Kemal Pasha of Turkey. He was a bold man. He transformed Turkey from a feudal society to a Western society. That kind of leadership we need, but do we have it? Honestly, we don't. So, for all our ills, we need strong leadership, and there should be a social revolution. You see, Britain is not known for revolutions. It's only France, US, and China and Vietnam, these countries, we talk about revolution. But what observers say is Britain also was having a lot of revolutions, which was not as bloody as the French Revolution or the Russian Revolution. But then there has been transformation slowly. Britain also gave up feudalism, though they retained the monarchy. They are a very progressive society today. They are as progressive as the Americans, except that Americans are world number one, great power. They have their soft power all over the world. So much more is known about the US than other countries. So women's place, I told you, is not at all good. Coming to caste, it is wishful thinking that if we say caste is there no more, you go through any ad, matrimonial ad, they tell you what is the caste they want, or the bride's caste should be, or the bridegroom's caste should be. And in our society also, unless an Indian knows your caste, he is not very comfortable with you. The moment he knows the caste only, he places you. This is a hierarchical society with 3,500 castes. Within the Brahmins themselves, there are hundreds of divisions. Unless you know the caste of a person, you are not comfortable with dealing with him. So caste, like corruption, also very deeply ingrained in our system, in our blood. I will say it is in our DNA. Caste is all economists tell us that caste is a stumbling block. A society cannot go forward if caste is not abolished. We all know that. Outwardly, we all agree to it. But then, do we have the courage, conviction to do away with caste? How many intercaste marriages are taking place? Actually, during the independence movement, a lot of such marriages have taken place. Intercommunal, interlinguistic, intercaste. We have seen most of our leaders in their families such things have happened, but today it is discouraged, it is looked down upon. You just can't, in the society you cannot openly talk against caste. So caste is part of us, it is not gone, and I would like to make a statement that so long as Hinduism is there, caste will be there. Because Hinduism today, as I can see it, is nothing but casteism. It is not a religion. A Hindu may give up his religion, but he does not give up his caste. That is how among Christians you find caste, Reddy Christians, Naidu Christians and all that. Among Muslims also there is caste. It's a wrong notion to think that Muslims are a monolith community, as much as Hindus are also not a monolith community. Among the Muslims you have the Shias and Sunnis, the main division, Saudi Arabia on the one side and Iran on the other. Then you have the Wahhabis, these fundamentalists of all kinds. And countries like Pakistan, which are similar to India, where women are in top positions and they are also suppressed. They are under a veil. Egypt is something different. Afghanistan is the worst among the Muslim countries. Today we are seeing the protest of women in Iran. It is something which makes you feel happy, makes you feel proud of those women who have so boldly come out to assert their rights. But then in India we are yet to see that kind of a movement among the women asserting themselves for their basic rights. Basic right of a human being is dignity. They have no dignity. So caste also is another thing which has, in fact, as I see it, it is increasing today. It has not decreased. And then coming to, you see, I always taught everything from the day of our independence. During the time of independence, our education system was bad. The British did not care much about Indian education and all that. Soviet Union, for instance, soon after the revolution, invested massively in education. As a result, that country progressed. It was almost equal to the US at one time, before the breakup of the Soviet Union. That kind of commitment we did not have towards education. Again, I have to talk only about that class difference, Whatever investment was made, it was made for the top people. At the top level, they were getting all the best. At the lower level, it was left unattended. As a result, today we have various categories of education. Corporation schools, you have private poor people's schools, you have private rich man's schools, you have. In America they say, it's a fact, all the great intellectuals of US have come out of the public schools, government schools. But what is the condition of government school? No toilets. Today there has been a big propaganda about toilets, so far so good. But then, has it gone on a mission mode? I doubt. It was not the initial enthusiasm was there. Today again, you go to schools, you don't find toilets, you don't find enough water. As an aside, I would like to tell you one thing. When we got independence, our leaders assured us honey and milk would flow from the Himalayas to the seas. But as it happened 75 years later, no. I always say even water does not flow. Drinking water does not flow. So the poor class has been left out. So naturally, their education system is also, and after all, they are the majority. If the majority are not given proper education, how can the country go ahead? So education, and then every government changes policies. Every bureaucrat has its own ideas. They implement that, and they tinker with the education system. As a result, the education system, today if you talk about the Indian administrative system, you can say education system has collapsed, the judiciary has collapsed, your economic system is not all that rosy, your social system has collapsed. What is there for us to talk big about? I feel very bad. It is all very well to talk that and comfort ourselves, but then that doesn't help. Unless you have people like, say, Charles Dickens, Rousseau, and such people in India to criticize what is wrong. Today, if you criticize what is wrong, you're considered a Naxal or unpatriotic person, very unfortunately. But then I have decided I will talk the truth. Let us talk the truth. Socrates spoke the truth. He paid for it with his life. And he was accused of corrupting the youth. It's very, very funny to hear that. But at those days, the powers that were, they thought he was corrupting the youth. So also here, today, I can be accused of being an unpatriotic fellow without any love for the country, who has closed his eyes for the reality. So look at the progress. I stand in front of Bishop Cottons in Bangalore or Baldwin School, elite schools. Definitely there is progress. India has improved a lot. But when you go to a corporation school, you go to a private school, I have seen schools in.
So thank you so much, Mr. APS Kumar, that we had the author of the new book, India, whose country is it anyway? So he highlighted the issues that the country is still having and the issues that are still prevailing in a nation like India, which is a very diverse nation.